But hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I'm super excited to be joined today by Natasha Henstridge, who is one of the stars and the executive producer of House of Abraham, which is going to be released in theaters June 13th of this year from Abramorama. And Natasha has been in so many films over the years. Some of them you might recall her in Species, Maximum Velocity, Ghosts of Mars. But in this role, you play Dee. And it's quite the role. So I'm first and foremost curious to know, Natasha, what interested you most about taking on the lead role of Dee for the film?
Well, I've been a huge fan of Lukas Hassel's for years. He's a dear friend of mine. I think he's a really talented creator. He's a great writer. And he sent me the script. As friends do, you never want to make any assumptions. And he went, just take a look at it. No pressure. It's not for everyone, blah, blah, blah. Just like life is not for everyone.
Right.
He's like, it's not for everyone. It's, the subject matter is, interesting, but take a look at it. And I went, okay, okay. And it's always a little scary when it's a friend and you're trying to, read something that a friend does. You don't want to hurt a friend's feelings. And I read it right away. I was like, I'm just going to start it because I have a little bit of time right now. I'm going to start it. And I couldn't put it down. I did not know where this story was going for the longest time. And I told him specifically not to tell me anything about it. I hate knowing too much or having preconceived ideas before going into reading something. And I couldn't stop reading it and I couldn't put it down. And I just thought, wow, this is different. This is a different type of thing. And I was stoked. I wanted to be a part of it. So I was like, okay, I'm on. Let's do it. Let's do this thing.
Well, I mean, watching it is very much sounds like what you're describing as reading it is because the whole time you're questioning who's here for what reason? Are they really here for that reason? What's
Yeah.
Abraham's deal? Like, why is he doing this? What's the whole point? Is he really that altruistic? And so it is a pretty
Hmm.
challenging film in that way, in that you don't really know where it's going to go. But it also deals with some pretty heavy topics, in regards to things like end of life and euthanization. How do you mentally prepare yourself to kind of be so immersed in this very sensitive and difficult topic of, end of life?
Wow, it is a tough one. I've always found that really interesting. I find the subject matter really interesting and the ability to be able to make those choices for ourselves and the fact that more countries are more on board now with end of life, with the right to end of life issues and stuff. More states are on board, more countries are on board. But it's still a very interesting subject matter, isn't it? It's like mentally, are you fit to make those decisions? Are
Right.
you, um, those are really big questions. And obviously there are people that have made that decision outside of facilities where they're being treated and changed their minds, or people that have made that decision and survived and realized that they weren't really ready. So you have all of these interesting concepts and really wondering, like in this particular house, really wondering exactly if people were genuinely ready to make that decision or not. And also my character is playing a few different things there. So for me, my character is very layered in that way too. So it was complicated in that way, the role, I think. Um, but yeah, it's a massive subject matter. It's a dark subject matter, and it's a tough one for a lot of people. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just was telling Lucas and Lisa that, I have a grandfather who was very interested in euthanization after my grandmother passed. And, I think this was many, many years ago. So this is before the topic had kind of become even state legislature was like, it was only one state was like Oregon that allowed it,
Hmm.
and so I think there is, it is something that not only is very difficult to talk about, but I think is also very difficult for people to kind of wrap their heads around is like, why would someone want this? The
Hmm.
idea of agency and kind of who has that agency at the end of the day is so
Hmm.
important.
Yeah.
But I also applaud the film for not really taking a side so much as treating people with the dignity and the respect that I think the decision deserves, just more so putting the onus on maybe the individuals who may not have the right intentions, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. So smart. So absolutely right. Yeah. I know of, some friends of mine who had degenerative diseases that did make that decision. One of them went to Switzerland and did it there, and which was a very popular place, I think,
Yeah.
to do that for a long time. Maybe still is. I'm not entirely sure, but It is a really big decision, but in some ways, one obviously, religion gets involved there, and that's a
Yeah.
very sensitive subject or whatever. But I think having the right to decide is pretty incredible. And you're right, the agency to make that decision for yourself is huge. But then, you have these things. I read a book years ago called Veronica Decides to Die, and it's by Paulo Coelho. And this woman wanted nothing more than to die until life was being taken from her. And then she changed her mind. And I think those are such interesting
Yeah.
questions too, So it is, you're right, the movie doesn't take a particular stance on it.
No,
And
and I think
I
that
think
works well
it,
for it.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also, to take a stance might make people feel react to it a certain way, but I think again, smartly, everyone plays it with such the right tone that it deserves. The material's handled so well by just not just you all as the performers, but also by Lisa on the directing side.
Yes.
But
Yes.
another character in the film is the house. I mean, it is this very kind of beautiful, almost new age, wellness looking landscape. Where did you film this and what was the shoot like? How long was it? Any difficulties and things along the way?
So it was filmed at a house outside of Austin, Texas. They found this great space that and built onto it as well, not
Sure.
built certain things into the house that they needed. Um, and then of course there were other locations as well, but the house was a massive character. And interesting, you're absolutely right, it being a character in the film. There's no doubt about it. There's an ominousness to the house, but it does have a wellness vibe to it. I totally agree with you. It's got a wellness vibe where we're in a safe space all together. Here we are, we're doing this together. And that has a hauntingness to it as well,
Yeah.
right? Because it
There
looks,
was a sterility to it or sterility.
yes, yes, it looks exactly like you're going to go get a facial and a massage and maybe do some workshops there,
Yes.
and it's a very different type of workshop that happens there. Um, yeah, the juxtaposition, which I think is such very cool. It doesn't look like the dark, deep, seedy, scary place, right? Which makes it even scarier. It reminds me a little bit of the Nicole Kidman show in some ways. Oh God, what was it
Pretty Little
called?
Liars or something like that, or
No, Perfect Strangers or something,
okay.
or where they were all set also at like a health facility type place, and it's beautiful and picturesque, and it sort of has this eerie undertone. I'll have to look that up actually, because Nine Perfect Strangers, is it? I think it might be called Nine Perfect Strangers, but I could be wrong because I'm losing, I've got perimenopausal mental fog or something going on. I can't think of words like elbow these days. I'm like, what? The thing at the end of your arm.
Well, I mean,
It's
listen,
it's
you get a
similar to
pass.
pregnancy. It's similar to pregnancy brain, but I'm pretty sure it's worse in my case.
Well, I mean, to catalog all of these shows and try and think of them in the moment is a very difficult ask of anyone. So,
Yeah. Thank you.
you get an out for sure on that one. But,
Thank you.
um, you know, when you think about you and your fellow kind of actors on set trying to maintain the tone between shoots or between, shots and things like that, was there anything you tried to do to maybe lighten the mood or in some cases maybe maintain that kind of sense of,
Mm.
somberness to it?
I always hear these actors talk about, oh my God, the subject matter was so heavy. We laughed so much on that set. We had such a good time. It was so funny. It was so fun. I so wish I was that actor. I talk about this all the time. I just did a couple of episodes of Fallout, and it was very heavy material. And myself and the other actress that I was working with, we were both talking about how we work. And I'm not saying I'm method by any means, because I'm not a method actress, and I go home and I have a laugh at the end of the night. But while I'm on set, I do find it difficult to break out of the tension mode and into joking with the crew mode. I'm not that actress, and I so wish I was, because that sounds so much easier and more fun. But I'm not
Right.
that girl. What's interesting with me with this one is Lukas is a very dear friend of mine, and he's funny as hell. Like the man is hysterical. He cracks me up. We actually lived together while filming this. And so as a testament to his acting and how great he is, we would be laughing our asses off on the drive home and get home and laugh and run lines and this and that. But I do like to stay in a sort of place when I'm filming certain, particularly certain scenes or heavier stuff. Sadly, I have to stay there to make it work for
Sure.
me. The man can turn it on like that and make and creep me out to the point where I'm like, I actually don't even know if I know this person right now. And go home with him and be a little bit like looking at side, giving him the side eye, like, should I even be sharing a house with you? Because
Sit in
he
the back
is,
seat this time.
yeah, honest to God, he's so good. He's so committed. He really brings out something. He he materializes something in him that some sick part of his something that is so creepy when I'm working with him that I don't even have to act too much. So that on the bright side, he enables me to react very easily to him because he's terrifying. He's actually terrifying. He's in these roles. It's crazy.
I mean, I'd asked him a similar question, about how does he maintain that persona of Abraham because it is so, heavy and dark.
Hmm.
And his response was, I wrote the character, so I kind of know the boundaries of where it exists. But I think it is a testament to his ability, but also your all's to be able to jump into that mindset, even if you're having to stay there for a little bit longer and others can more compartmentalize.
Hmm.
It really shows up on the screen, and I think everyone is not only kind of delivered very authentically, but you really feel for a lot of these characters. You understand their struggles, and it's, I think, of the utmost importance in a film that deals with things that are very much character centric as opposed to kind of action oriented.
Yes, yes.
And you've been in the industry for quite some time. You've worked in genre for a long time. I'm curious to see, how do you think, from your perspective at least, the topic of mental health has, become less destigmatized in industry and in filmmaking over the years?
I think it's hugely crucial. I think like I don't want to misframe this, misword this, but I think, people have been talking for years about identifying with, whether it's African Americans, they want to see characters they identify with. They want to see representations of themselves on camera and races, religions, creeds, this, that, all of
Yeah,
these things. And I think mental health is a huge one. I think people are struggling more with mental health than ever, and sadly, that's probably due to social media and telephones and
yeah,
all of the things. It's a busier, crazier world, and we're hearing and seeing more about it every day in our everyday lives. And I actually have a lot of personal experience with mental health issues myself, and as does my family. There's depression in my family, and um, I've also had some issues with depression throughout my life, which is like a clinical, and people say, well, what do you have to be depressed about? And and
right.
everybody has their cross to bear, so to speak. I think talking about these things in film is paramount to helping. I mean, it's just huge. Anytime people are I've seen things, I've seen people post things online, and I oscillate between going, oh God, do we really, let's not do the pity party thing online and talk about that stuff. And then I look at the other side of that and I go, my God, if that helps one person feel less alone, it's huge. And
Right.
it's funny because I think we're in Mental Health Awareness Month right now.
Yeah,
Is that right?
I think so.
Or it was
Yeah.
last month or it's this month. I'm not 100% sure, but I've been seeing a lot more. And I've even thought about talking about it myself more because like social media and like seeing the best of everything online and everybody shows the best moments and the best things, I think it's important to talk about the other stuff too. And to even it's like all these women that are not perfect now that are showing themselves online and
Right.
like, I'm not perfect. It does help a lot of people to realize like a lot of this stuff is smoke and mirrors. Like not
Yeah.
everyday life is not as great as everybody's making it look. And I think that it can be helpful actually,
Yeah.
in many ways, because everybody's going through something, you know?
There's a billboard that I used to drive by when I lived in LA that said that everybody's going through something, and I think that it's something that stuck with me. I have an anxiety disorder myself, and so I think that it's all, it is important we talk about these things, and
Hmm.
I think the film treats it with a lot of respect, as it should be. It's not trying to exploit anything, so
Hmm.
But Natasha, I just want to say thank you so much for this time. It's been a delight talking with you, and I want to remind everyone watching this that please go see House of Abraham in the theaters on the 13th of June. I don't want to say it's a blast because makes it implies that it's like a really fun, action-packed movie, but it'll make you think, it'll make you feel, and it's a really good time at the
Mm.
movies. So, Natasha, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you in the Fallout series and whatever else you're going to be in next.
Yeah, thank you so much. You were a brilliant interview. Thank you for being original and interesting and smart. I appreciate
Oh,
it. Yeah,
thank you so much, Natasha.
yeah.
Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am super excited today to be joined by two folks behind the film House of Abraham. We have director Lisa Belcher, and we have one of the stars and the writer of the film, Lukas Hassel. So thank you both so much for spending some time to chat with me today.
Of course, glad to be here.
Thanks
Oh,
for having
excellent.
us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I just got to start this off by saying it's hard to say I had a blast with the film because I feel like the subject matter is so heavy, but I really enjoyed the experience watching it. It's probably the best way to put it because it is a bit of a heavy film, but very, very well made. So kudos to you both on a successful film.
Thank
Thank
you so much.
you.
Well, I know we don't have all the time today, but I'm going to jump to first few questions. The first one's for you, Lisa. What were some of the things that really drew you into this project to this from the start?
I think, I mean, there's a lot of things. I am such a fan of Lukas as a writer. I've had a privilege of working with him before. But as I got into the story, I think there's just so many predictable films out there these days when you sit in the audience, and this film takes you on so many different twists and turns. So if I pick one thing that really pulled me in, it's Lukas's ability to lead us one way, and we think it's something, but it's something else. So yeah, that was it.
No, I would agree. High but very accurate praise, I'd say, for the ways in which the film kind of navigates a lot of different twists and turns. And Lucas, you take on the titular role of Abraham, but as we mentioned, you also wrote the film. And I'm curious to know kind of what inspired this story because it's a bit dark, but it's also one of those things where I have a personal connection with a grandparent who was very much of the mind of wanting to go through euthanization after his my grandma passed, and so. I know it's a topic that, is a bit taboo, but also becoming far more talked about. So what kind of inspired you to put this into story form?
Well, there are a few different sort of answers to that, right? And as a writer, I encourage people to write from the heart, but in this project, it was also a little bit of writing with the head. It was a mix of the two. So from the heart, it was very much about this exploring this taboo subject of end of life. And I see around me a lot of people being sort of manipulated by people who are more ruthless and maybe more educated or higher in power than them. And it's really about exploring how to be careful who you trust when you're at your most vulnerable, right? So I see that
Right.
around me a lot these days without mentioning names or so forth. So that's sort of the heart aspect of it. I really wanted to look into that manipulation side of things. But then from sort of the heady part, it's also, I think as an indie writer and filmmaker and actor, I think it's incredibly important not to do something that Hollywood would make with bigger budgets, bigger stars, and bigger everything else, because why compete with them? So I was interested in trying to develop a feature with Lisa that Hollywood would never touch. And that sometimes involves taking on subjects that are dark and a little bit outside of the box. And those are the films that I'm attracted to watching. So at the end of the day, I wanted to write something that I would be interested in seeing on the screen.
Well, I'm with you. I think that one of the best things about independent film, particularly now, it feels like we're having a revisitation of the 90s where independent films are becoming far more well known, far ubiquitous in terms of what's being exposed to. But you're right, they are being able, yeah, exactly. Cheer finally. But
Yeah.
there is this kind of, moment that, there are a lot of things that happen in this film that I think would be very difficult for a studio to get their hands around, particularly the way in which you deal with some of the people's desires to come to end of life. And you mentioned you both have worked together before. You've worked in a few short films together. And I'm curious how you found that working rhythm, particularly given the fact that Lucas, you being both in the film and having written it, and Lisa, you having to direct Lucas and as well as the rest of the cast. So, did you find that rhythm prior to working together, or was it something that developed kind of doing this more intimately together on this film that really sparked?
I mean, I'll jump in. So when we first collaborated together, I don't know, it's something super rare, and Lukas and I have really an incredible collaboration. We've been, I mean, as you imagine in a film, there's a lot of tough times, tough decisions, tough conversations. And I think we both have the same priorities and are very, very particular about story and about choices and all of that. And I genuinely respect so many of Lukas's choices as a writer, as an actor, and all that. So, I don't know. I think we're really lucky how we collaborate together. I'll hear Lukas's side too, but I think it kicked off with Guest of Honor. Honestly, over a lunch one day, we had a conversation. I had sent him a version of the script, and we just kind of really clicked. And I think we think a lot in the same way, and support each other, complement in different ways too. So yeah.
And it's ditto to all that. And I want to give kudos to Lisa, because Lisa is she's a hustler in many ways. She makes things. She's a doer, right? There's so many people in this industry who talk and talk and talk, and maybe, and we should, and let's try to do that, and then nothing happens years down the road. Like, Lisa reached out to me after a festival we both screened and said, "Listen, let's grab a coffee or let's have lunch." And I appreciate people who are trying to make things happen, because that's the only way things are going to happen in this world. So, and then discovering that she's not just a kind and lovely person, she's also a very talented individual. So it was a real gift to be able to find someone that you can collaborate with. And I'm a big believer in don't work with a-holes ever, and I never want to do that on my products. And Lisa is just a lovely, like, bright person. She attracts a lot of people to her, and it's lovely to work with someone like that, regardless of everything else. I think that's just important, because why make life miserable for yourself if you're involved in a project for so long? There are plenty of talented people out there, so work with the ones that you get on with, if you can.
No, I mean, especially when you're working on such heady material where,
Yes.
it does require you to be very kind of in a different mental state. It does help to have those kind of positive relationships around you so that you can get to the vulnerability that was required to really put forward this very emotional performance or talking about this very, challenging story. And I think one of the things we hear a lot from filmmakers who we talk to is that there is this something special, like almost a secondhand language that gets developed between, frequent collaborators. And it's so great to hear that it's not just one that's based off of your both of your all's capabilities, but also a mutual respect and admiration for getting things done. So it's just beautiful stuff to see. And Lukas, another question for you about the role of Abraham. I can imagine it's such a I would like to assume you're not that way in real life. And so getting into that headspace, what kind of mental preparedness do you do to help you stay grounded, particularly as you know that you have to kind of cut it off between takes and kind of get back to the same, headspace that is probably not the oceans you want to swim in all that often, I guess, outside of the role.
No, it's a good question. I mean, the saving grace for me in this case is that I wrote the character, right? So I really know where this character is at all times, and that's very helpful for a feature when you shoot out a sequence, right? For a short, you can sort of wing it and you sort of remember what you shot the day before or 2 days ago, so you can sort of find it again. But in a feature, because you jump around, I think we shot some of the last scenes first in this particular case, and so you sort of have to hit the ground running. But because I knew the character so well, I knew exactly where he was at and what had motivated those feelings in that given moment. And I also knew what he was after. Because, of course, one thing is what you play, but I think with any good film or acting performance, it's all about the subtext. So I knew exactly, he may be saying one thing, but I knew what he was really saying underneath. And so being the writer of that was very helpful. And then, of course, Lisa keeps an eye on anything that sort of falls out of track, or if there's something that veered off what we had discussed or what she wanted to do, there was always a helpful comment to sort of get that back in line.
Yeah, I think it must be nice again to have that prior working relationship so that you already have that trust and
100%.
you know how to challenge people if need be or push back accordingly. And Lisa, you've done quite a bit of work both in front of and behind the camera. You've done a bit of acting roles before this. You and Lukas have collaborated on some short films. How do you think the work you've done kind of prior has prepared you for this first feature you've directed?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, just experience on a film set, because we all know it's such a special, unique ecosystem, and everybody has to work together and collaborating. And as I did not go to film school, so I learned a lot by doing. And my first film I directed, I was in Hong Kong, and I remember being on set with the DP, and I said, "Okay, wait, sound is rolling, and then you're rolling, and then action. Okay, great." So just I mean, education. And then also learning, I think probably the most important thing to me is it's always, it's about the people. And if you prioritize the people, you prioritize your actors, your team, all of that, then everything falls into place, and the story comes from that. So yeah, I think that's what built up to this.
Yeah, I mean, good people obviously can make or break anything, right? And so, especially given that a film is such a collaborative exercise, it's not one person's responsibility to make or break it. It's a collective. And you know, to use the film's terminology, it's the we, right? You know. But
Love it.
my last question for you both is a bit of a fun one, but I often find it can be a little difficult, so I hope it's not. But if you were asked to pair House of Abraham with another film as part of a double feature, what film do you think would make a perfect complement with House of Abraham?
Well, I mean, first of all, that I guess that depends on what you consider a perfect compliment. Because myself as a writer, I like to juxtaposition things. So
Yes.
if you mean like a comparable movie in terms of types and tone, I would definitely not pair that up with another film. For why would you want to watch two films that are so similar, right? So I would probably
Right.
choose something completely opposite. I would maybe explore the manipulative side of things and choose potentially The Shining. Because
Ooh.
Shining is a very different film to Abraham, but it's also a sort of gaslighting situation, but explored very differently. And so, yeah, for a good night of horror, I would go for the Shining and A House of Abraham.
What about you, Lisa?
That is a hard question. You're right. But as far as similarities, we did speak a lot about the film called The Invitation, which I
Hmm.
think is a similar sort of experience. And so, getting yourself in that headspace and being prepared, you would be fired up to see both in the same night. So that would be my choice.
You know what? There's no wrong answer to the question, I think, is why is that, you know, I'm a big fan of movies that kind of take you one way and then another film that kind of takes you completely different. So, you know, I've heard people pair up some of their horror films with kids' films and I've asked that question. So it's like whatever experience you want to vibe.
Which film would you pair it up with?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot.
I know exactly. Well, there you go.
So there's a movie called Murder Party that came out, I don't know how long ago, maybe 2012 or something like that, where it's kind of it's almost like if you take House of Abraham but try and make it a horror comedy in a way, it's almost like
Ah,
kind of the gist of it. So I think it might be a good little pairing with it just because they're both two sides of a coin, but you know, they kind of look at it from different angles. So,
okay.
but you know, now I'm
Check
thinking
it
to
out.
myself, now I know it's why it's so difficult because I'm thinking to myself, oh, is that the right film? Oh my God, you're trying to catalog every movie you've ever seen right here in the moment.
Right.
But I just want to say thank you to you both for taking some time to talk about the film and remind everyone that's watching this that you can catch House of Abraham in theaters on June 13th from Abramorama. And I cannot sing high enough praises for the film. Thank you both for the time and congratulations on this film and hope to see you both working together again in the future.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Really appreciate it.